Hello and thanks for checking out ChartGuys.com. We're proud to be one of the most successful technical analysis communities online, teaching you the skills to become a more confident, effective, and informed trader. Join our community of hundreds of analysts worldwide working together to learn the charts, generate profit, and achieve financial independence. For access to daily live chart analysis and market coverage, a thriving chat community, along with dozens of hours of exclusive educational materials. We look forward to seeing you. Let's check out some charts. Checking in on the USMJ sector, so the bottom line is the majority of the names traded on the OTC, most of them being MSOs, they are holding support lines. They're playing defense and trying to build a base of support, but they're not doing anything to prove offense to us. They're not changing their daily trends yet. They're not seeing any kind of significant bullish volume, and that has a lot of people that are in the sector a bit worried just because the S&P 500 just had one of its most massive weeks in recent history, a significant shift in sentiment. And it might be a trickle-down effect that we're looking for in the sense that the bulls are going to be looking to buy the dips and buy the discounts in more liquid names, not only in the Canadian MJ sector, as we've seen names like Kron and CGC and APHA perform better, but also the broader market, Netflix and all these other names that were on discount and had bounced significantly. And now the question is, if the market is truly taking a sigh of relief and moved on from its last fear cycle, and if we do see the bulls make their way back towards all-time highs in June, is that renewed confidence in the market going to see some renewed confidence in the USMJ space? We're also watching the Safe Banking Act. We have the individual states doing their thing, New Jersey and New York. They're really dragging their feet a bit after Illinois just legalized. But we saw that the Illinois legalization didn't really do a whole lot. So individual states at this point, not really going to do it. We need a game changer, and we need something federally and something that's more broad for the sector as a whole. So we're certainly watching the Safe Banking Act, and right now, in my opinion, the market is pricing in the Safe Banking Act. I shouldn't say it's pricing in, but I would say that the general amount of people that are following this would anticipate that the Safe Banking Act is going to pass in Congress, but going to fail in the Senate. And that's personally what my belief is going to happen. The question now is, when is it going to pass in the Congress? Are they going to get it off before they go into recess, or is it going to be more delayed? And I think that's right now the uncertainty. If it passes in Congress sooner rather than later, I certainly think we'll see a bullish reaction. But again, it'll be long from the bulls being out of the woods in the sense that that bill will have a ways to go before it were to be enacted. If it were enacted, that would be the most bullish event in 2019 for the sector, in my opinion, but I don't think that's likely. So GWPH, we're looking for a weekly higher low to form. We have the all-time high, and anything above 151.32 will be that higher low. We closed down at the low of the week, and the daily time frame has yet to build a base of support that is holding. We tried here in the 171s. We held 171, 71, and 172. It was a bit of a double bottom. That broke on Friday. No real follow-through for the bears at this point, but if we were to break 170 on Monday, that would be a clear little lower high and lower low follow-through, and our focus would then shift to the weekly time frame, looking for the weekly higher low to form compared to 151.32. IIPR got that new all-time high. Again, you're not going to find many MJ names hitting these new all-time highs. It's, in my opinion, because it's an REIT that's issuing dividends, and REITs that issue dividends do well in weak markets, and we have certainly been seeing a weak market over the last month, maybe not the last week, but bulls positioned very well to take advantage of the bullish last week that we saw. So we're overextended on the daily chart. We had all-time highs 2 days in a row, but a little bit of a double top there to be watching. If we lose the hourly uptrend, we look for a healthy consolidation to form a daily higher low. 94.23 is that hourly support. Break 94.23, we zoom out to the daily, and we look for a daily higher low to form somewhere in the low $90 area. Weekly time frame has been on fire, grinding the 12-period exponential support, maintaining higher lows every little consolidation period we get, and now seeing that continuation with some solid bull volume behind it. So again, you're not going to find a better chart in the MJ sector than IIPR currently is. CURA. So here's an example where we have a low set, the high of the bounce, which is just a lower high in the daily downtrend, and now we're pulling back. There is no bear volume here. There's no volume in general. The volume on Friday, 200,000. That is one of the lowest volume days that you're going to find, and we had one more to start, or I should say to end May, that was that low, but that's pretty much the lowest volume that we've seen in months. So that's notable, just not a whole lot of activity at all. The average 20-day volume is more than 3 times, more than 200% higher than what we saw on Friday. So for the bulls to go on offense, again, we're playing defense to a degree. We have to hold 10.07 and break 11.93. And right now that needs a 10% move for the bulls to see that resistance break. We closed at the low of the day on Friday. So keeping an eye out for a trend change to mean anything. If it does not change this daily trend, then the bears keep their control. The weekly time frame has been pulling back for a month. And again, it's just a question of whether we're playing laggard to the market or not, because these 4 weeks certainly look a lot like SPY's last 4 weeks, except for this past week. CWeb. So CWeb is still weak. It's a daily bear flag that's close to following through. The bulls have to hold 1638 and break 1817 to change any kind of momentum. If we drop down and break 1638, we're looking at the weekly time frame, which is, this is one of the more significant pullbacks that we've seen as far as the rate that we have pulled back here, almost 50% in just about 2 months. And looking at the longer term monthly chart, we're looking for a higher low on the monthly chart. Don't forget that on most names in the MJ sector, still looking for a monthly higher low, but this level is 1080. We're still well above that level, but again, it's a long ways away, which means there could be further consolidation before we set any kind of bottom. TRUL. So TRUL is trying to hold 1362, that bottom, and has to break the high of the bounce to see this momentum continue to shift. 1491 is resistance, and any individual USMJ name that breaks its high of the bounce from last week is going to stand out as clearly stronger than any name that does not. So next week, this is an easy way that we can distinguish stronger versus weaker names based on how they react to the prices from the low to the high of the bounce from this previous week. So TRUL, again, we always want to know what the longer term perspective is doing, and TRUL on the monthly time frame, also looking for a higher low. Anything above the all-time low is a higher low. We just need to see daily trend changes as the first signal that the monthly higher lows have been set. We certainly need follow through after that, but if we're looking for the first signal, it will be a daily trend change that can definitely fake us out. Again, it's the higher risk, higher reward signal. If we want to be real safe, we're waiting for the weekly trend changes. That's not happening anytime soon. But the earlier higher risk, higher reward signal is the daily trend changing. So IAN is still very weak. 508 is the low that the bulls are trying to hold. Have to break 561. Again, we're building a base of support here. It's just a question of whether the bulls can follow through. If we get over 561 this coming week, a lot of things will be firsts for the first time in a while. And it'll be the daily exponential resistance, which has rejected the price a half dozen times in the last 6 weeks. We would get over that level if we were to break 561. So I'm watching a falling wedge pattern here, which is a bullish reversal pattern. But again, I'm taking it all with a grain of salt, and I'm being very skeptical of the bulls. And I do have enough of a position, pretty much all of a position that I want in the current trading environment. If we were to flush down into the upper $4 range, I might look to add a little bit more. Again, I am day trading, or I shouldn't say day trading, I'm short-term flipping my IAN positions around longer term holds to continue lowering that cost basis. But here's this resistance line. You can see how many times we've rejected from this resistance. No candlesticks closing above it. Here's our downtrending support line. Same thing, we've held it a bunch, and it looks like Monday we're coming to a flex point. So Monday or Tuesday, we're either going to see a clear break of 508 support, or the bulls are going to make their way up towards 550 and these two key resistances in the 560s. Keep an eye on IAN. I do expect a volume spike and some clarity as far as this pattern goes early this coming week. CL. So again, bulls playing defense. That support was down at 1331, and we held 1336, but the bulls are going to have to break 1468 to change this trend with a higher low and higher high. So bulls need proving. Longer term pattern, monthly time frame, looking for a healthy higher low to form. Volume's just fine. There's no red flags on the volume. Big bull volume on the way up, low bear volume on the way down. It's just a question of finding that monthly higher low. OH also looking to hold the low of 966, and then the bulls will need to break the high of the bounce up at 1093. Higher low, have to see the daily trend change. Bulls have a lot of proving. It's all up to them this week. Show us something, or lower lows are coming. HARV. So again, base of support's being built. It's a very tight range here. We're looking down at support of 816, 815, a little double bottom. And for this resistance, the most important level for me would be 907. Let's look at it on the 4-hour time frame. So we got a high, low, lower high, double bottom. It's a bit of a descending triangle. First signal would be bulls breaking 867, and then they would have to break 907 to get follow through on a shift in momentum. Keep an eye on Harv this week. There's a lot of names that are on the brink of shifting momentum on the daily time frame for the first time in 4 to 8 weeks. So they're not doing anything yet, but they're giving us these tightening ranges that can easily get a little bull break if we just see some returning money into the USMJ sector. GTII has also been building a base, but it looks like we're on the verge of another leg down. Support was 1497. We did break it, but only by 4 pennies, but we did close at the low of the day. So on this pattern, look how long we've been trading within this range of essentially 15 to 1650, and that's about a 10% range. And we've been within this 10% range now for 13 days. So bears are close to a bear break and another leg down, but if they can hold that support level and break 1650, that would be the clear shift in momentum bulls are waiting for. Just nothing yet. In this whole range, we've seen 1 green day out of 13 days. So it definitely shows you the bears still have control and confidence. MedMen, solid little bounce from the all-time low, but it's also coming after significant downside. Anything under 321 is just a daily lower high. Again, I'm watching, if we do see some continuation on this bounce, I'm watching for the inverse head and shoulders pattern to potentially set up, where if we see this bounce unable to break 321 and we need a 4-hour higher low to form, I'll be watching for the inverse head and shoulders giving the shift in momentum signal. But at this point, I think we have to top out and form a daily higher low first before we get any kind of daily trend change or any shift in momentum. KSHB, solid bounce off the lows, and certainly one of the better bounces, and that is due to being on, it's actually on the OTC. For a minute there, I thought it was on the NASDAQ. Not the case, but it is more correlated in my opinion. Let's see. I'm going to wait to look at some things before I make that statement. I want to see what the dollar volume is like. I want to see what the correlation to the S&P 500 has been in the past, and I'm not going to do that right now while recording the video, but bottom line is the bulls have nice space to work with. Any name that has this much space to work with to form a higher low, the odds of a daily trend change are higher because there's more space to consolidate and keep support before trying to change the daily trend. So we topped out. Actually, we might not even have topped out yet because we have a higher low every candlestick inside bar on Friday. If the inside bar breaks 456 bearish on Monday, then our top of the bounce will be set at 480. And if it doesn't break bearish, then we can't be confident the top of the bounce has been set yet. So we know we need a clear daily trend change. Let's look at the longer term perspective on the monthly time frame for KSHB. And we did lose some monthly supports, but we do still have one. 376 is the most important support level. We have not broken below this level in over a year. And the low so far is holding it. So it's a bit choppy in here, and I don't like the lack of clarity on all these time frames, the longer term. The monthly and the weekly are not clear trends right now. So that alone would make me not trade KSHB. I'd keep an eye on it, but I personally would be interested in names that have more clarity. CVSI trying to build a base of support down at 392. And the first level the bulls have to break is 424 and then 429 to shift this momentum. Solid close on Friday up at the high of the day. Let's see if we can break 424 early this coming week. And again, the weekly time frame has been pulling back for months at this point. What does the monthly time frame look like? Still in an uptrend overall. Anything above 333 keeps that uptrend. It did get a little bit less clear up here, but I am looking for that support level of 333 to hold. So CVSI close to shifting the daily momentum. And when we shift this daily momentum, if we do, we know anything under 498 is still just a clear lower high in the broader picture. So won't get too excited on that kind of shift, but could provide short-term bullish opportunity. NBEV, oversold bounce. NBEV has been getting crushed. The clear weekly equilibrium had a bear break at 505. We used $5 as our level just to give a little bit of space, and because that's the clear psychological level. And clearly, exiting at $5, if you were in a long-term position, or going bearish if you had that ability, we saw a very significant follow-through of 15% once that support level broke. The bounce is underway. Key resistance is 491, and then we're going to look at that previous support, now resistance, in the low $5 range, but we likely have to top out on this bounce wherever it is, and then see a daily higher low and higher high. So this trend change is a ways away from happening on this bounce. It's not the same setup as other names that are trading sideways a bit, trying to build a base of support. This is just an oversold bounce coming after a dump. ZYNE, doing the base of support game. Can we go on offense is the bottom line. Holding a double low at 1038, double bottom, and now the bulls have to break 1224 to shift that momentum. If we break 1224, it's certainly going to look like our weekly higher low has been set off of this exponential support. So this is the kind of clarity I'm looking for as a trader. This weekly uptrend is very clear. The bear volume is very low compared to the bull volume. We're holding exponential support at this point. We pulled back for 3 weeks after a significant bull run. So this is the kind of setup where I'm very confident looking for a daily trend change, because the longer term trend dictates that a daily trend change is coming sooner rather than later to form that weekly higher low. So if you were to ask me as far as the clearest charts, this right now with the weekly and daily time frame compared to everybody else that we've looked at, almost aside from IIPR and the names that are holding on well, this is the best for clarity with just those two time frames. PYX, also building a base of support. For the bulls to do anything, we have to break 19 and 1983. And that would be notable if the bulls could pull that off, because that would be a bit of a weekly trend change, because we have our low of the weekly dump, which was a break of support, but not significantly. And then we had a weak little bounce attempt, and now we're holding support. If the bulls can get over 1983, it'll be the start of a shift of looking for our monthly higher low to form in this equilibrium. So flat base of support the last 5 weeks, and we need that break of resistance to give us that monthly higher low. PLTH also standing out on Friday. I assume they had some kind of news. I don't know it off the top of my head, but you should certainly be aware of that if you are trading PLTH, which I am not. $3 is our double top. That's the most important resistance level, and it will be a clear shift in momentum if that level does break. We have our low of the weekly consolidation, high of the bounce, held support, and now we're trying to break that resistance. Look at the monthly time frame. Pretty healthy overall. Inside bar, and that's not going to break anytime soon because the month still has 3 weeks to go, but that weekly break would give the bulls a lot of confidence in that clear shift in momentum. Again, not many names seeing that kind of shift. BAM is a pump and dump. So I want to distinguish, because when you say pump and dump, you often think scam, and that's right on. You should be thinking scam. But a lot of scams are pump and dumps. Not all pump and dumps are scams. So I don't know anything about the fundamentals as far as reading financial statements of BAMM, but what we can say is that it was hijacked. The stock was hijacked by pump groups. They go on social media and they stir up the hype and the FOMO, and they get a lot of newer traders to put their money in at bad entry points. And you can see from 371 in just 6 weeks later, we're down at 143. So a company that's, long-term, you don't drop that much. You don't drop 65% in 6 weeks if it's not a pump and dump. And you don't run that much. Of course, you have to have the pump part before you can call it a pump and dump. But the bottom line is this is what happens after these groups come in, they get their profits, and then they leave, and then there's nobody left to buy. Everybody that was going to get suckered in terms of falling in love with the story, and this is going to be the next one to hit it big, or whatever the reason that people get involved, they fall in love with the story, and then we just give it all back. We're in a weekly downtrend with a lower high and lower low. We are certainly extended on the daily chart, but when we bounce, we're just going to form a daily lower high. 155 was key support. We broke that very significantly, and you can see how fast these drops take place in these thinly traded names. We were at 259 on Friday of the week before last, and at this previous Friday, if that's a 50% drop in 1 week. So again, that's a pump and dump. So we have to see a daily trend change for it to mean anything. Even if we do, we're just going to look for a weekly lower high. This name is going to have a lot of work to do before we regain longer term trends in favor of the bulls. Tilt is another one to a certain degree. The fact that we saw a 2-week run up after the IPO, and in this 2-week run up, we went from $2 to $4. There's your 100% move in 2 weeks. And now over 6 months, we have given back 66%. So that's a pump and dump back to all-time lows. Again, I'm not saying anything about the fundamentals of the company. I am saying that the stock price and the low float was taken advantage of by groups, and they leave them in the dust. Worse off than when they got in. So daily time frame, just a very clear downtrend, 320, 302, 237, $2. Anything under $2 is just a lower high. I have no interest in names that are in all-time lows. So MedMen has certainly lost my interest. Change the daily trend for MedMen, I'll be interested. Change the daily trend for Tilt, I'll keep an eye out. But this weekly time frame for Tilt has just so many clear upper wicks of lower highs and profit taking that it would probably take a weekly trend change before I would be interested in Tilt overall. And as far as support goes, we don't have anything. It's just the low of 131. Then we look at psychological 130, 120, 110, $1. And it's just not the kind of scenario you want to be in, because it can always get worse when you're in blue sky or black dirt breakdown all-time lows. So it's going to be a very telling week for the sector. Can the bulls go on offense and break some of their short-term resistance levels? Does the relief in the market overall trickle down to some of the higher risk assets? Again, the biggest disadvantage that these stocks have, and this is a certain way to look at it. A lot of people think that the USMJ sector has a big advantage to retail traders right now because of how big of a disadvantage it is as far as liquidity goes. And we don't have the big money involved, and this is potentially a scenario which isn't being seen. You don't see this in the market because of the legality of the situation. You don't see a sector where big money literally legally cannot get involved and retail can get involved, getting in before the big money. So that's the question. Is this going to be, the ultimate opportunity where retail has the opportunity to load up on all these names, and then we see the federal laws shift, and then we see big money get in, and then we see multiple 100% runs? And again, it's just, there's so many unknowns because historically, you can't really look to any previous historical examples where we've had this scenario where big money and institutions have their hands tied in a huge market sector that's just waiting for the floodgates to open. And the biggest question right now in the sector is, when are the floodgates going to open? Because if we're loading up right now, and if the floodgates aren't going to open for another 12 to 16 months, then obviously we're going to be too early. But if the floodgates open up, again, if we were to get any kind of significant bullish news, federally speaking, out of nowhere, there would be such a massive squeeze in these names that we would see hundreds of percent moves very quickly. The question is, what kind of news would we get that would come out of nowhere? In this current administration, I'd say there's potential for it. Again, the scenario where the Democrats are going to be running with this as a part of their platform, very likely. I know right now Biden doesn't have this as part of his platform as far as marijuana goes, and I can't even fathom how the Democrats would expect to win if that's the case. But bottom line is, anybody but Biden is going to have marijuana as a part of their platform, and the question is, will Trump try and take that away with some potentially bullish statements or bullish actions in the space? That all remains to be seen. Time is the biggest factor. When are we going to get the floodgates opening? When are the institutions going to come in? Because we know institutions are going to be invested in U.S. marijuana stocks, and the question is, when? And I don't have the answer. So we're going to take it one day at a time, as always, and it's a significant opportunity as long as the timing is right. Appreciate you watching. Have a good rest of your Sunday, and we'll be back tomorrow.